मरघट तक है तेरी कहानी पग पग प्यारे दंगल 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 सूरज तेरा चढ़ता ढलता गर्दिश में करते हैं तारे दंगल 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 दंगल
Good morning, friends. Good morning, friends. Good morning, friends. So today we'll be starting with lecture number 2 of a reading named as Understanding Business Cycles. Friends, in the last lecture, I told you something about business cycle, that this reading is very important and testable for the examination. So please take out your registers. So today we will be again noting down some very important class notes. And I can tell you that at the time of examination, just you have to revise these class notes. No need to read curriculum. No need to read Squazer. Because you will not get so much time. Even to read that bulky CFA curriculum. So these class notes will helping you at last time. Just turn out the pages, just have a reading, have a revision of that. And along with that class notes, my recommendation will be that use the highlighter. That highlighter is very important. That's why I'm using different colors, Our mind accepts different types of colors. So color technique is very important technique. So please take out your registers. Lecture number 2, great morning, learning outcome number A, phases of business cycle. We have already discussed phases of business cycle, but still I want to tell you something more in regard to phases of business cycle. So in this lecture number 2, I will be discussing 2 learning outcomes. One is learning outcome number A, the remaining part, and then learning outcome number B, that how different, different resources or housing sector or export imports will tell me about business cycle. So we can have an idea with the help of resource activity, with the help of inventory, with the help of labor force and unemployment, employment rate, and physical output activity, physical output utilization. With the help of that also we can analyze that we are in which cycle. So today I will be dealing with 2 learning outcomes. My humble request to you will be take out your registers. Now phases of business cycle, this type of graph we have already prepared in the last lecture, and even I have shown you from Google Baba that the time and the growth rate, they are not always linear relationship. They can have, but it is not necessary that they have a linear relationship. In general, there are 4 phases of a business cycle: peaks phase, contraction, top, bottom, and then expansion, then growth phase. And an economy moves in these types of 4 phases. The most important phase is this expansion phase. When the economy has started growing, that expansion phase is very important. Even I can say, within expansion, this I will say early expansion, and this I will say late expansion. Within expansion, there are 2 phases: early expansion and late expansion. So what are the features? What are the features that how I can find out that whether it is a concentration phase or what? No doubt I have already told you the features, but because I want to give you some more specific emphasis on this contraction and expansion, so my request to you will be, please prepare this graph. X-axis time, y-axis I have taken level of economic activity, and I have prepared a business cycle. In this business cycle, there are 2 peaks, peak 1 and peak 2. This is contraction. This red color is contraction. Then this black is trough. That is bottom point, and then this point, blue point, is expansion, and this again red is peak. So I have in my graph there are 2 peaks. There can be any number of peaks. So what this graph tells us in regard to expansion phase, no doubt I have discussed that my real GDP will increase, my employment rate will increase, or I have told you that unemployment will decrease. So my real GDP will increase, my employment will increase, consumption will increase, investment will increase, and even inflation will increase. It means all will increase. Real output will increase, expansion. I am talking of expansion. Real output will increase, prices will increase, consumption will increase, investment will increase, all the variables, all the examples will increase. So I have written this output will increase, employment will increase, consumption will increase, investment will increase, and even inflation will increase. So this is the feature of expansion phase. And when I say concentration, when I say declining phase, opposite to that. So please write on third point, concentration. Concentration slash declining phase of business cycles is characterized by decline in output, decline in employment rate, decline in consumption, decline in investment, and decline in inflation. So these are the basic features, especially these two phases are very important, that when it is concentration and when it is expansion. Now hope you have written the second point, third point. Now this point is highly testable, which I have written in the fourth, and I have given 3 stars. All the words are important, even the words which are very important. I have written it, I have underlined it. The first line is business cycles are recurring. It means business cycles are recurring in nature. When I say recurring, it means they will occur again and again. They are not non-recurring, they are recurring in nature. Business cycles are recurring, but do not occur at regular interval. This is most important point, that business cycles do not occur at regular interval and they are recurring in nature. It means they will happen again and again, but we cannot analyze that when this stage will again come. It means there is irregularity in that, and can differ in strength. It means if we have reached the bottom point in the last cycle, we were at only for 2 years. Now it can happen that we will be at 5 years in this stage. The strength will be different, the intensity will be different. And the last point is, do not persist for specific length of time. It means that they will happen for this much period of time. It is also not compulsory. So the point is, this point number fourth is highly testable. Business cycles are recurring, but do not occur at regular interval, can differ in strength, do not persist for specific period of time. So for example, I have given the example gold price. We cannot find out that whether we have reached the bottom point, whether we should purchase it now. We always wonder, because technically we cannot find out that we have reached that bottom point, tough point, or we have reached that peak point that we should sell it, because it is not possible. Even technically we can find out. So these phases are recurring in nature, but they don't have any regular period of time. Whenever they come, they have different intensity, different strength. So that's why I have prepared a graph for you, just to understand that how, this is the bottom phase, this is a top phase, but just see how huge magnitude this has. So it depends from cycle to cycle, that which stage belongs for how much period. So this is learning outcome number A. I am moving to learning outcome number B. Very important examination point of view. In this learning outcome number B, I will be discussing, describe how, with the help of resource use, with the help of housing sector activities, with the help of external trade sector activity, vary how these three varies, how resource use, how housing sector activity, how external trade sector activity vary as an economy moves through the business cycle. It means as we move through the business cycle, as I've just told you, as I move through the business cycle, then if in this business cycle, with the help of some activities, I can determine that which cycle it is. It means if I am at bottom, if I get the idea of resource utilization, resource activities, inventory ratio, or labor utilization, employment rate, unemployment rate, export import, I can analyze that this is declining stage. Similarly, at expansion level, if I am aware that this is the resource activity, this is the labor, this is the inventory, this is the physical output, this is the housing sector, I can get an idea that in which stage I am. So this is my learning outcome number B, that I, with the help of resource use, with the help of housing sector activity, With the help of external trade sector activity varies as an economy moves through the business cycle. So the first point is when I say resource use, resource use, I mean inventory, I mean labor, I mean physical output. So these are the three resources which I am talking of. Now with the help of utilization, with the help of inventory ratio, with the help of employment rate, with the help of new hiring, with the help of firing off, with the help of physical capital, I can get an idea that in which phase I am. So please write down first point, resource use fluctuation. I am in learning outcome number A. Now my dear friends, whenever I calculate inventory to sales ratio, I can calculate inventory to sales ratio, and with the help of that, if inventory to sales ratio is declining, I repeat, if inventory to sales ratio is declining, it means I am in the beginning of the expansion stage. Why I am in the beginning, I will be telling you. But if my inventory to sales ratio is increasing, it means I am at later stage of expansion and I am near to reach that peak point. So how with the help of inventory to sales ratio, I can find out that whether I am at the beginning of an expansion or I am at the later of expansion. With the help of that, I can easily calculate it. Firstly, write down A point. Inventories are important business cycle indicators. Inventories are important business cycle indicators. Inventories are important business cycle indicators. Inventory to sales ratio typically increases, you know because sales are decreasing, but but my inventory stock that is piling up. So when numerator will increase, when I say how to calculate inventory to sales ratio, in numerator I will be writing down inventory and denominator I will be writing down sales. So when I say inventory to sales ratio will increase, it means numerator is more than denominator. It means my inventory stock is more than denominator. It means my sales are less and inventory piling up is more. So it implies that when sales are less, that it means that we have reached the later stage of growth. We have reached the later stage of expansion. Now we are just to touch the peak point. So with the help of inventory to sales ratio, I can easily find out that in which level I am. So A point, inventories are important business cycle indicators. B point, inventory to sales ratio typically increases late in expansion when sales slow down. When sales slow down. Late in expansion, just see, this is the expansion phase, this is the growth phase. Now the point is, within growth I can have two parts, that is early growth and late growth. Because when I say early growth, my inventory to sales ratio will decline because I am selling more, because that inventory stock is piling less and I am selling more. So I am at early in expansion. But when my inventory to sales ratio is increasing, it means my inventory is more as compared to sales. It means my sales are declining. I am near to reach peak point. So I can, with the help of this inventory to sales ratio, can determine that in which stage I am now. How labor utilization, how employment, how new recruitments, how layoff of the old staff help me telling that in which activity I am. Now, supposingly we have entered into the declining phase, companies are not getting fresh orders. They are not getting they are not getting the renewal of the orders. It means they are entering into a contraction stage, that is declining stage. So with the help of that, whenever there is a contraction stage, it is not that they will start laying off, that they will start firing off the employees. They will take some time, that because to employ a new person and to train that, it involves a cost. For example, Infosys, Wipro, they are entering into a declining stage. Their orders are not being renewed. They are not getting the new orders. So what will they do? They have a fixed cost. Employees cost is a fixed cost, but they will not quickly fire off their employees, because firstly they will see that whether this stage is happening again or not, or once they are confident that we have entered into the declining stage, then they will start laying off, then they will start firing off their employees, but not in the beginning. So just I don't point utilization of labor, as hiring and laying off of employees involve high cost. as hiring and laying off involves high cost, as hiring and laying off involves high cost, therefore firms prefer to adjust their utilization of current employees. It means whenever they are getting the huge orders, they will not automatically, it means whenever I am in at the early expansion, I will not employ more number of employees, because hiring, it involves hiring cost, training cost, so I will be utilizing the current staff. As a result, firms are slow also, because hiring cost is very high in case of concentration, in case of contractions phase. Firms will not start firing off their employees once they are not getting the orders, or if they are not, orders are not being repeated early in contraction, and slow to add new employees early in expansion. It means they will not react quickly to expansion, they will not react quickly to contraction, they will take some time in reacting that. For example, Wipro, Infosys, TCS, firms use their now we are in resource activities. Within resource activity, we have seen that how inventory will tell us that in which stage we are. Then how labor utilization will tell us that in which stage we are. Now third point is within resource activity, physical output, that how with the help of physical output, whether firms are buying new equipments, whether firms are buying new plant and machinery, whether they are getting maintained that old machinery, whether they are using it at full capacity. Now with the help of that utilization, I can get an idea that in which phase I am. So this is the next last point, of resource activity. Firms use their physical capital more intensively during expansion. It means when we are entering into the expansion, their firms will be using 100% their capacity level. They will be working double shift, because with the current plant and machinery. It means if they are working at current shift, at double shift, specifically in case of sugar industries, when in case of sugar, in case of festival season, if firms are doing high work, if firms are utilizing their human capital doubly, it means more than their capacity, it means they are in the expansion, but they will not purchase new plant and machinery in the early expansion. They will wait and watch, and hence investing in new physical capital. And now if they are sure that this is expansion stage, they will buy new capital, they will hire new employees. Only when they believe that, only when they believe that expansion is likely to continue. It means they will not go for the step in early expansion, but once they are confident that it will be there, so in that case, this expansion is likely to continue. Firms use physical capital less intensively during contraction. Now, when the economy, when the business cycle is at declining stage, it means when real output is decreasing, when investment is decreasing, when consumption is decreasing, when inflation is decreasing, they will not immediately sell off their old plant and machinery. Rather, they will defer their maintenance. They will decrease their capacity level. So when they are not utilizing their physical output at a highest level, or when they are not maintaining it, I will say it is a contraction level, contraction phase. So just see G point. Firms use physical capital less intensively during contraction, likely to defer maintenance, hence likely to reduce capital. So my dear friends, with the help of this resource activity, this learning outcome of B relates to describe how resource use. When I say resource use, it means how inventory, how labor, and how physical output, physical capacity, how resource use vary as an economy moves through the business cycle. Describe how housing sector activity varies as an economy moves through the business cycle. Describe how external trade sector activity varies as economy moves through business cycle. So I have completed resource use, that how in contraction, how in expansion my resources will be used. Now I am on to housing sector activity. Now when I say housing sector activity, can you tell me what is the meaning of housing sector activity? It means people, citizens are buying new houses. Whether they are buying new houses or whether they are getting the houses on lease. Now, with this activity, I can analyze that whether I can have an idea that in which phase my business cycle is. Now, if these new people, these people, citizens, they are buying new houses, it means their income is more as compared to the expenditure. When the income will be more, when GDP will be more, when GDP is increasing, when they are sure that they will be getting the employment, it means these points will help us to find out the activity, housing activity, and when there is a good or increase in new housing activity, then I will say that we are on the expansion phase. So please write down for housing activity what are the points to be taken into account. Level of activity in housing sector. Level of activity in housing sector. It is affected by mortgage rates. It means the rate at which, the lease rates, the rate at which one lessor can give the house to lessee. Demographic changes. It means more the young population, more the young population, they will be having, want to have their own house. So demographic changes, ratio of income to housing prices. If the income increases as compared to the housing prices, they will go for new houses. Investment and speculative demand. It means if there is a difference in the prices of that particular houses, there will be a speculation in that. So these points will help us in determining that in which phase we are in of the business cycle. So hope you are writing down. Please note down second point, level of activity in housing sector. It is affected by mortgage rates, demographic changes, ratio of income to housing, investment, speculative demand, etc. And the last point is whether the imports are increasing, whether the exports are increasing. Now with the help of export activity, import activity, net export activity, I can find out that in which stage I am. Supposingly imports are increasing, it means people, they have the income and they are purchasing foreign goods. It means if imports are increasing and if my currency rate is appreciating, if my currency rate is becoming more stronger and stronger, it implies that I am at expansion stage, and hence then only my import will increase. Similarly, when my exports are increasing, it means my currency level is depreciating. When my currency level is depreciating, it means my real output is decreasing. So there are so many factors with the help of which I can find out at that in which phase I am in that business cycle. So please write down third point, external trade sector activity. Domestic imports tend to rise with increase in GDP. Domestic currency appreciation and domestic currency appreciation. It means whenever there is an increase in GDP and whenever currency appreciates, the imports will increase. And whenever, when exports will increase, whenever there is an increase in foreign income and domestic currency depreciation. Whenever there is an increase in foreign income and domestic currency depreciation, and the domestic currency depreciates, it means my export will increase. So just have a look in this Google Baba that what are the phases of business cycle and how I can, with the help of this, just see in the business investment, when I am in the expansion stage, my investment will increase, and when I am in the contraction stage, my investment will decrease. So with the help of these resource activity, housing activity, and net export activity, I can analyze that in which cycle I am. Be happy, be jolly, be cheerful.